Good morning. It's now May the 5th. May the 5th be with you. About 5 degrees as I sit out here. Just wearing my sweater, which will be fine once I've warmed up from walking a little bit. Today's just called there and back again because that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to walk basically out along College and a little bit on Broadway and come back on 15th. So a fairly straight walk in both instances. And a beautiful morning. Should be very nice this afternoon as it warms up. Still have some non-fiction work to do this morning when I get back. Tangled Stars is coming along. I'll be plunging into it, I hope, as well this afternoon. Pushing that ahead, finally. After reviewing and reassuring myself that the first 70,000 words make sense, which I think they do. And I had Kickstarter stuff to do yesterday. I got some more contracts and sent more money to more authors, which, as I said before, I quite enjoy doing. Again, if you're new to these walks, I kickstarted an anthology called Shapers of Worlds Volume 2, which is a sequel to an anthology I kickstarted last year. And these involve fiction by guests of my podcast, The World Shapers, theworldshapers.com. And last year's anthology featured first-year guests. This year's anthology features second-year guests. And many of these are huge names in the field. I sent money yesterday to Garth Nix, for example, for the story he provided. And I've got stories coming from Kelly Armstrong and Marie Brennan, and David D. Levine, and Jeffrey A. Carver, and people like that. Well-known names in the science fiction and fantasy field. So anyway, that's all underway. Stories are coming in. I'll have to do editing soon. Starting to send out backers rewards. There's a whole lot of time at the post office in my future as I mail out some of the books that I offered as backers rewards. The actual trade paperback of the actual anthology will be sent out by the printer that I used last year. It worked really slickly. And so I'm going to use that same printer again for this year. However, I think for the commercial release, I might do something different this year. Last year, I piggybacked on Radiant Press, local publisher here, take advantage of their distribution, but at the same time, losing a cut. And there was some confusion, like in various bookstores, the publisher shows up as Radiant Press instead of Shadowpaw Press because I was effectively an imprint of Radiant Press for that book. I didn't like that. So I'm going to try my more standard print-on-demand model this time. Bookstores can still order it through Ingram, and we'll see what happens. I have to have some means of comparison anyway. There are a lot of dogs in front of me. We're going to go under the underpass here to start down College. That's why I came this way. See all the green leaves popping out on the bushes? Every day and every way it's getting greener and greener. Are they going down through the underpass? I'm really stuck down there with them. Or stuck behind them. Don't seem to be moving very fast. So it's handy to go through the underpass and to wait for this long light here, so that's the way we will go. It was closed for a long time because of water after the snow melted, but it's open again now. It looks like they got through. Watch my head.
Good morning.
Morning. There's always graffiti down here. They clean it up and it comes back. Personally, I think graffiti people who put graffiti should be shot, but that's just me. Maybe a little harsh, but it doesn't seem to me there'd be any great loss to society. Actually, that's not quite true. I always thought the appropriate response to vandalism should be destroying something that's precious to the person who did the vandalism. So, you know, you key a car and you get that leather jacket you've loved your whole life burned in front of you. Is that too harsh? I don't think so. Oh, this is Speaker's Corner, so I pointed out before, those lanterns there actually were in Hyde Park in London at one point. If you're watching live on Facebook or YouTube, leave a note so I know you're there. Oh, just as I say that, I get the unstable internet connection thing. It's just so annoying. It never used to happen until about a week ago. I started to get it 2 weeks ago. Well, for those watching the recording, my voice is still clear. Isn't that pretty with the sun on the green and the long shadows of the trees? If you're trying to watch live with an unstable connection, it's probably buffering like crazy. Of course, the lake's over there. We'll walk around that on Friday. That's the tradition. There's a gazebo over there that I pointed out before, that I performed in and been to a wedding in. So it's used for quite a few things. And the Royal Saskatchewan Museum over there. Morning. Tell my horizon's a little crooked, but I've tried to fix that and it never stays, so I'm not quite sure what to do except ignore it. So pretend I didn't say anything. Nice and still, at least. I don't have my little cotton ball over the microphone, which I'm not sure did much good anyway. In fact, I thought maybe it was just muffling my sound rather than helping. Keep going back and forth. A good, like a wireless lapel mic that I could wear if I was doing this, runs a couple $100 potentially. I'm not sure it's worth it for something that's only viewed by a couple of dozen people each walk. I mean, my channel overall had, certainly the views have gone up total, something like 900 or something since I started doing this, or more. But each individual video might get 20 views on YouTube over time. On Facebook, there might be another 20. And how long those people watch? Well, just a few minutes typically. Very few people watch the entire hour stream. That's the new credit union building. Built last year, really, when they finished it up. So it hasn't been open very long. I still haven't been inside it. No reason to go inside it. And of course, College Avenue up there where the traffic is. Always people with dogs. Glad I have a cat. Dogs are too much work. Although I suppose here I am walking every day. If I had a dog, I'd just walk the dog while I did this, but I don't have a dog. Here's the front of the building. And then the Conservatory, Performing Arts next to it there. Well, first Dark Hall, which is currently under renovation, is going to be quite wonderful, and that's done. It's a terrific auditorium, but needed a lot of work. The seats were the original 1920 seats, and some of them were broken. They were too close together. They certainly weren't comfortable. Here's the front of that. And over here you can see the joint space they've built. So that'll be the new lobby for Dark Hall, which is accessible from the other side as well, which is great because Dark Hall has had a tiny lobby. Here's Dark Hall itself. And I think I always remember the, well, no accessibility until when it was first built, of course. From the front step, you open the door and there's an immediate step down, like 2 inches of lip and then down, which is just begging somebody to fall down the stairs. I don't know if it ever happened or not, but it sure looks to me like it could have. Here's the Conservatory. The original Regina College, original university, beautifully restored, well, renovated. Large chunks of it are gone because one wing had to be torn down, but the facade is largely intact, and there's now a walk-through. You can walk straight through there to the matching doors on the other side and out, or you can when things are open. We donated money to it, so there's actually a room with our name on it, and another one with my wife's mother, Dr. Alice Goodfellow, who was a big supporter of the arts, and said we had 4 generations of the family had performed in Dark Hall. She did when she was taking piano lessons as a girl, performing, and I have, Margaret Ann has, and then Alice has. That's 3 generations. Okay, 3 generations. 4. Not yet. And in front of us, to the right, is the CBC, the white building. And then it connects to the soundstage. That bigger white chunk in the middle is part of the soundstage, and then this is the kind of the office part of the soundstage, largely. There's various offices in there, including Creative Saskatchewan, which gave me a grant last year to publish the commercial edition of Shapers of Worlds that went out with the aforementioned Radiant Press distributor. Lit Distco, Literary Distribution Company, maybe? I don't qualify to join, what's it called, Literary Press Group yet, myself, as Shadow Paw Press, because too many of my books are my own books. And I've still got a lot of my own books to go through and get out in new Shadow Paw Press editions. There's at least 2 for sure, possibly more. I need to get new editions out. But I would like to publish more books by other people, if it makes sense for anybody. Can I make them any money? I don't know. Depends on how many books they can sell, because my marketing department is me, so there's so much I can do. So here's the inside of this building is completely redone. It was just gutted and just the facade left, except for that tower. I don't know about the upper floors of it, but the lower floors down here, you see the entryway is still the old building. When I first moved here, that was part of the university, and that's where the theater department and the arts people hung out there in the Conservatory building. And before that, at one point it was a teacher's college. And during the Second World War, I think they used it for some military purpose. It's all in my book, Historic Walk to Regina and Moose Jaw. Unfortunately, I can't remember what's in my book. Here's the side all lit up in the sun. Still haven't had any hellos from anybody watching the live stream. If you're there, let me know you're there. Say hi, and let me know if there's sound on Facebook. It's failed a couple of times for no reason I can figure out. And I've walked in silence. She walks in silence as the night. What's that from? A bit of poetry. And I got something in my eye, which is really annoying because I can't do a thing about it. It's that blink. You wear contacts. Spring is awful because there's often a lot of dust in the air. I just hope my eye eventually waters enough to wash it out. So that's the CBC Saskatchewan. Where I used to go every week for my science column for some 17 years. I was on the afternoon edition with Colin Greer. I started doing that even while I was at the Science Center in the early 90s and carried it on until they decided they'd had enough of me. They changed producers and, oh well, can't have anybody on that long. So I lost that gig, which was too bad. It was great while it lasted. I really enjoyed doing that. I kept writing the science column. It appeared in some newspapers too. I kept writing it for a while and putting it out to a subscription list, but quickly became apparent that only about 10 people were bothering to open it when they got it. So I dropped it. One of the sobering things about being a writer of any sort is discovering that people don't really care very much. About what you're writing. Sometimes you think you're reaching lots of people and you find out nobody's actually reading it. That's very disappointing. That was the case with the science column once it left the newspapers. I'm sure it was read by many more people in the newspaper, but they didn't come with me when it left the newspaper. At one point I was going to put out a collection of those, but they're so old now I don't see any point. The data in them would be ancient. A lot of stuff in it that's just wrong now, I'm sure. They're all on my website, and people do find them. I probably have more readings. Especially some of them. There's always certain ones that people really like. Okay, we're going to go down Broadway here. So I will cross while I've got the light. So a walking commuter whom I discovered on YouTube and who was sort of the inspiration for this, who walks around New York, he walks on Broadway. So I'm just walking on Broadway. It's unfortunately a rather boring version of Broadway compared to the one in New York, or even the one in Saskatoon. It's very straight. Last time I came this way I had to dodge piles of snow, so I guess that's changed. Anybody watching live, let me know you're there. It's always nice. I walk regardless. I suppose it's a bit like the science column. I do this and almost nobody notices and nobody really cares, but I do it anyway. Difference is, the science column took up time that I should be used writing other things that might make money. Here, I need to exercise anyway, so it's nice that a few people watch it. I'd love to have, you know, thousands of people watching it and make money on it, but that seems unlikely. So really, it's just for my own motivation to get out and walk every day. But I do enjoy it when people say hi in the live stream, so please do if you're there. Long straight sidewalk. But this is called There and Back Again because the there is down to Winnipeg. Not the city, but the street. I'm not walking all the way to Winnipeg. And then I'm gonna go up to 15th and walk home on 15th. That's the plan. Or no, 14th. 14th? Yes, I want to walk home on 14th, not 15th. Or is it 15th? No, it's 15th. Well, maybe a bit of 15th, maybe a bit of 14th. Anyway, I'll be walking home over there. Probably a somewhat shorter walk than some. Not entirely sure until I've done it. But again, I did a couple of really long ones on the weekend and I do have work to do. This used to be a curling rink, but I don't think it is anymore. It's a gym, I think. Just based on what it's called. Yeah, it's a gym. But it used to be a curling rink. Over there's a liquor store we sometimes shop at, and a grocery store that we almost never shop at. Probably won't be to this. Well, we'll come to this liquor store because this is where the Epimium Society sends our wine. The Epimium Society is a Canadian organization that orders in wine and distributes it to members. Wine that you wouldn't get in the liquor stores. Thanks for taking a look there, lady. I had no idea she was turning, and she obviously didn't care that I was walking. Anyway, the Epimium wines are delivered to that liquor store back there, and that's where we pick them up, over there. And then the grocery store next to it. Apartment buildings down here. Over there is Balfour Collegiate, which figures in Shards of Excalibur. My version of it. In my version of it, there's a swimming pool, which there isn't. And in one scene, Wally Knight comes out on this corner of the building, that building, which is not quite the same as this one, slips on a patch of ice, hits his head, and ends up in the hospital. Then there's some tennis courts further down behind the next school over. At least there were. I hope they're still there. Where there's a major scene in the book as well. And in fact, I guess when I turn down Winnipeg, we might walk right by those. So more Shards of Excalibur locations. You can read about that book series on my website, edwardwillett.com, or it has its own website, shardsofexcalibur.com. Oh, that was the other thing I did yesterday. I have a older middle grade, younger YA book called Fireboy. My agent tried it in a few places. He's really only interested in the really big publishers. So it's now become available for me to see what I can do with. So yesterday I sent out queries, and in some cases the whole manuscript, sample chapters in other cases, to several potential publishers. So we'll see if anything comes of that. I mean, the ultimate fallback is I publish it myself, of course. I like it. I like all my books. But as I said earlier, one of the sobering things about being a writer, especially in this day and age, when so many people are writing and publishing their own stuff, is that really nobody much cares that you're a writer. So discoverability is the big challenge. And I know there are people who are more successful at it than I am. I don't know. It should be my golden age because I'm can be very prolific, and if I could make money at it reliably, I could be cranking out books at a fairly impressive pace. The trouble is, I don't make enough money, make some money. I don't make enough money doing it to not do the other things that more reliably make money, which is typically nonfiction work. And so I'm locked into doing that stuff and things like mentoring, which I'm doing right now, and workshops, and anything for a buck, all of which eats into actual writing time. So it's a bit of a catch-22. All I really want to do is write, and for people to give me money. I don't see what the problem is. Still no notes from anybody today, so I guess I'm talking to myself and to whatever future viewers watch this recording of this. So I don't mean to complain too much. I make a living as a full-time freelance writer, which is itself highly unusual. Most people who write have other jobs, and I've been doing that for, let's see, it'll be 28 years this fall. So 27 and a half years, basically, I've been a full-time writer. Now, admittedly, marrying an engineer helped. I would have made some sort of living. It's not the living to which I've become accustomed. There are no tennis courts here anymore. I'm sure there used to be. So I guess the tennis courts in charge of Excalibur are fictional. But I'm sure there used to be, almost sure, there used to be tennis courts back here, over here. Anyway, that's the location of them in the book, and the schools are not the same, so everything could be fictional. But very important scene takes place right there. Because Ariane in the books lives on the next street over. So she runs from what has happened here, across the street and down an alley a little further up, where she hides out while emergency crews respond to what happened back here. There's a couple of hurt people after that. One of whom is Wally's sister, which puts a strain on the Wally-Ariane relationship that was established in the first book. And the second book is called Twist to the Blade, and at the end of it, Ariane and Wally are not on the best of terms. But it's not a spoiler to say they do come back together as the series continues. I'm sure there were tennis courts there. So this is Winnipeg Street. All the streets over here, for quite a stretch, are named after other Canadian cities. So the houses along there, which would be very handy to live in if you went to this school over here. daughter's first daycare was in that school. I don't know if well, then it closed because the school needed the space and we had to find another one, and she ended up at the Y, which was great. Great facilities at the Y for daycare kids. And the daycare's still there even though the Y itself is closed, that downtown branch, which is too bad because it was my gym before COVID. I was going 2 to 3 times a week and doing weights and was feeling pretty good about that. And then I lost it all. And I'm sure I've lost all the fitness that I built up. So now I'm walking, but I'm not doing the upper body stuff at the moment. I really should try to find some way to get back to it once things open up more. It still feels weird now, even though I know gyms are open to a certain extent. I don't feel any great rush to get out there. College in Winnipeg. I'm going to keep going up on Winnipeg. Just 15th, I think. At least to start with. I might take a turn around the hospital. Turn. Looking back down College. I feel that perhaps I sounded a little whiny about nobody cares. I mean, people do care. I get nominated for awards, and the Moonlit World is up for a Saskatchewan Book Award. That's my 12th nomination since 97, I guess, was the first one. 12th nomination, and for the 10th book overall that's been nominated of mine for Saskatchewan Book Award. I've been shortlisted for Aurora Awards more than once, and won once, of course, for March Seguro in 2009. Best novel. At that time it was called Best Long Form Work in English. Been shortlisted for Sunburst Award for Canadian Excellence in Literature of the Fantastic. Long-listed, I should say. 3 or 4 times, I've forgotten. Including the first 2 books of the World Shaper series, World Shaper and Master of the World. The only thing I find a little weird about that is that they long-listed me in the YA category, and it's not a YA book as far as I'm concerned, but it wasn't published as a YA book, but that's where they put it. I don't know why, but there it is, so I'll take it. It didn't make the short list, but still, that's nice recognition. I've won nonfiction awards too, so I shouldn't say nobody cares that I'm a writer. I just wish more people bought my books, but every writer wishes that. No matter how many books they sell, they wish more people would buy their books. Into coming down here on 15th. Show off one of our local brew pubs. We have several good ones. And this, or last week was, maybe it's this week, was like International Craft Brew Week or Day, or there was something about craft breweries being recognized in some fashion, so let's recognize one as we walk past it. My niece and her husband used to live in those condos to my left. Not anymore. They have a house now. Oh, cat. Too bad Shadowpaw's not watching. He always takes a great interest in cats. There he is, or she. Yeah, so this is called Multinational. It's a nice little brew pub. And they also have, or they did, there was a coffee shop on this side, but maybe it's just, there's our cat friend. His own mission somewhere. Okay, I'm actually going to go up to 14th. Oh, actually, I walked past, somewhere back there, there used to be a convenience store that also features in Shards of Excalibur. I'd forgotten about that until just now. Not going to go back and find it. Like I said, all these streets are named after Canadian cities, and as soon as I get to the corner, I'll tell you which one I'm on, because I'm not entirely sure. Squirrel to go with the cat. I don't know if you saw him or not. It's just the other side of that tree. Being shy. All new buildings over there in that corner, but they kind of match the neighborhood pretty nicely. In a park here. So which street was that? That's Montreal. Okay. So this actually runs me into the hospital, but that's okay because I want to walk around the hospital on the other side. Is my plan. New construction here, and then that's Regina General Hospital directly ahead of us. Don't know what these big noisy trucks are doing. That's where Alice was born. It's in this building. I've been in it. Ever been a patient in it? Yes, I have. I think. Was that here? I haven't been in the hospital very often. And there's two. The other one is Pasqua. I think I was in the Pasqua one. Sometimes, I don't know. I think I've been in both. Not very often, so. And not for very long. And nothing major. I'm reasonably healthy. More of the new construction over here. Very handy if you happen to work at the hospital. Got one of these. All right. So this will take us down past the emergency entrance of the hospital. There's downtown over there. Still not a single comment today. I'm feeling very abandoned. Nobody cares that I walk either. Everybody hates me. Nobody loves me. I'm going to go out in the garden and eat worms. If you're a certain age, you recognize that phrase from a children's book. I don't remember the name of the children's book, but I remember that line from elementary school. Here's the emergency entrance for Regina General Hospital. Of course, parking. It's never enough parking. There used to be another building over here where it's now parking. That was like an old nurse's residence. Maybe when I moved here it was still here. And I think I even maybe had a rehearsal in there once. But it's gone, if I'm remembering right, but it was there at all. This is the main entrance over here. It says main entrance. I want to go up another block just for interest's sake. Maybe I do. We'll go up here. And then work our way back from up there. Also, there was a bit of an altercation going on between security and a unhappy gentleman, so don't want to get mixed up in that, especially with the camera. That building over there always reminds me of a lunchbox. It has a handle on top of it. Way over there in the distance. It's what I thought of ever since I first saw it. It should be low enough to step over without turning this into faceplant live, as I made the joke before, or possibly Tumblr. So that's 13th is the next one up. Oof. To get run over. Always a downer. That brick building up there, at one point it was a Hebrew school, I believe. And then for a long time it was a radio station. I'm not sure what's in it now. Doctor's offices, I think. And this low building in front of us was Slate Art Gallery for quite a while, but they've now moved over closer to us on 13th. I mean, they're still on 13th. They're just down to our left a few blocks. So I don't know what's here now. There's some sort of sign up. It looks like it's a vintage store. T&R Vintage. It was nice enough as a art gallery, but awkwardly laid out for events, because we're normally there for an opening reception. And it's very long and narrow. Had a bottleneck in the middle, kind of. So it was very hard to circulate and see things. Albert Street up there. We'll go up there and then go back down. To our left as we continue to work home. How long have I been out? 45 minutes. Oh, well, this will be an hour by the time I'm done. More than an hour. So I thought it might be shorter, but it's definitely not going to be. And still, as far as I can tell, nobody's watching live. So if you are, drop me a note and I'll say hi. I don't know what the latency is on right now. Normal latency, there can be a 30-second or minute delay or something like that between what I'm seeing and what you're seeing live. So it can seem like I'm ignoring comments when in fact I haven't seen them yet. I think you get better resolution video stream if you use normal latency as opposed to higher latency or lower latency. So there's downtown, part of it, this corner of it. We had a power outage down here this morning. Hope that's over. We go this way because the light hadn't changed. So this is Broad Street. That tall condo building ahead of us is pretty new, but the one peeking up behind it is quite old, been there for a long time. And various shops along here. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu over there. It's a cafe and bakery that I did not know existed until now. Used to be a computer store over there. I remember taking my Commodore 64 or buying stuff for my Commodore 64. There's a gym here on the left. Neuro Fitness, I don't know what that is. Medical lab in that building there that I've often been to for blood tests and stuff. And the Shoppers Drug Mart over there for your 24-hour drugstore needs. 7-Eleven over here for your 24-hour big gulp needs. Okay, we will cross up here as the light permits us. Looks like we'll be crossing to the other side before we try to cross to the right. There we go. Going this way, I can walk through Central Park, which is always nice. So I've been through a couple of times. Oh, Broad Street. Looking downtown. The Hotel Saskatchewan peeking up over there. Behind those, framed by those two spruce trees. And the main entrance of the hospital that is down behind me that I walked by, but took the long way around, partly because of the argument going on between security and somebody out front. There's the Life Labs I've been to over there. Kind of a health building. CNIB is in there too. Shoppers Drug Mart, and there's more doctors, or there are doctors' offices in that wing down there. This coffee shop over here, Abstractions Cafe Bistro. A fictionalized version of it appears in Charge of Excalibur 2, where it's called The Human Being, which is what I've called a lot of fictional coffee shops in my books. If you go looking for them, they show up in more than one book. The Human Being shows up as a coffee shop. Never let a good idea go to waste. It's not plagiarism if it's yourself. So there's a scene in there, and in this neighborhood, Marianne is actually chased by a henchman of Rex Major, who's really Merlin, and his modern day guys. They get chased through and around some of these houses and stuff. I didn't make the neighborhood exact to the actual neighborhood. I didn't even bother because that's not what I needed. So I think in the book, these apartment buildings would probably have been there and in the way, but I didn't use them because it is fiction and I can change things as I went. Another view, that's the back of the SAS Power building. Other downtown buildings. Apartment building, as I just mentioned. This old building to our left has the Prairie Dog in it, our alternative newspaper. Read, well, from my point of view, raving left-wing lunatics, but that's just me. And they do good arts coverage though. And over here is the apartment building again. As I've said before on here, politically I'm kind of a squishy libertarian. Mostly I just want the government to not bother me. I think most of the things government tries to do, they just screw up and make worse. Too much government is worse than too little government in many areas. But I'm squishy because I do like the Canadian healthcare system for the most part. It has its problems. Don't let anybody tell you it's somehow perfect compared to the US one. So, you know, not exactly doctrinaire in my beliefs, and willing to be convinced otherwise. But generally when it comes to government, don't trust them, any stripe. And I voted for 4 or 5 different political parties because I can vote in the States as well as in Canada as a dual citizen, although I've only voted down there twice. And so I'm one of those swing voters that everybody tries to convince to vote their way. So again, this little display here is about Mary Baker, who was a ball player and who was one of those players that was in the league that A League of Their Own was inspired by, and in fact she herself may have been contributed largely to the portrayal of the lead character in that movie. So this was put up a few years ago to honor her. There's a little mural here, and then there's an obelisk over there that I've stopped at before. This will be a very nice garden once it gets going. Of course, we own a condo over here in this complex, which I've walked from before, where we lived when we were first married, before we moved back to the house where my mother-in-law was living. We switched places with her when she started having more difficulty managing the house. The condo was much easier. We moved, we were fortunate we still had it because we moved into it when we did renovations to the house, which was very nice to have a fully functional space of our own. Well, our house was torn down to the studs in most rooms. Replaced all the old plaster with drywall. And of course, wiring had to be redone at the same time. More insulation, all that kind of stuff. And we're planning to build a deck this summer, probably late summer the way things are going, but the drawings are just about done, engineering drawings, and there'll be an extension involved, a small extension with a downstairs bath in it, which we don't have at the moment. That's the plan. We don't actually have a final quote on that yet, so how much we do this year may depend on how that quote comes back. And we hope to add a hot tub, but that'll probably be next year. Pretty sure we won't do that this year, especially since it's likely not to be complete until September or even October. Hot tubs are great to have in the winter, but I don't want to start with one. Trying to worry about it in the winter. Some more old apartment buildings here. very tall spruce growing up in the sort of the courtyard of that one. This was a much longer walk than I thought when I thought about it in my head. It's going to be over an hour by the time I get home. There's the interior of that, or the interior courtyard. That's a very old building on that corner over there. You can just tell by looking at it. Bus coming. So if you look there, that's the whole thing. Kind of an attractive building. This is a nice house. I've been in there. I mentioned before that I like that kind of faux Tudor, half-timbered look, but the big green awnings don't do the building any favors aesthetically, as far as I'm concerned. Restaurant in here, that Fireside Bistro, been to a few times. Second house down over there, building down over there is an art gallery. Cinneboy Gallery, great gallery. We bought art at and had stuff framed at. This used to be a youth hostel, but not anymore. It's like there's a law office in it now. So what's the song running through my head today? Nighttime darkens, heightens each sensation, sharpens, not darkens. Music of the night. Turn your face away from the garish light of day. Turn your thoughts away from cold unfeeling night, light, and listen to the music of the night. I can actually sing that very well, and have. Why am I thinking of it? Well, I saw a picture of a guy in a Phantom mask on Twitter for some production or online concert version or something of Phantom of the Opera. And of course that made me think of Music of the Night, and that made me think of when I sang it, which was, I've done it a couple of times, but in fact I did it at a music festival. I still competed in music festival a couple of times when I first moved up here because I was just in my 20s in the open category. But I also sang it in Telemiracle, which is a big fundraising telethon that happens every year. I think it's the only time I ever performed in it. Remember, Ronnie Prophet was the host. Very complimentary, and it went over really well. But, you know, it didn't lead to anything. It's not like anybody called me up and said, "That was so good. We want you to come to Broadway." No, but it was very good, if I do say so myself. I can actually sing the song quite well. Thanks to low falsetto on the high note. Higher than that, but I can't really do it out here. Shouldn't have to wait too long. Oh, the bright white lines. They painted all of the traffic lines on Albert at some point recently. So they're nice and shiny and white for now, won't last. I do it every year because by the end of winter you can barely see the lines. Alright, we'll angle over this way now. Almost back to Angus Crescent, which means we're almost home. Nobody has said hi, so I'm assuming nobody is watching. If you are, you still have a chance to check in and let me know you're there. That would be nice. Why would you bother reverse parking like that? Sure, you get away faster, but the time it takes to park like that takes up whatever time you get to pull away, especially if you're not fighting traffic. I mean, if you're at the football game, it's easier to pull straight out of your spot into the traffic than to back into it, or someplace like that. But just in a gas station parking lot, it doesn't make sense to me. He didn't ask, he just did it. It's depressing how rare it is for people to ask me my opinion on things, because I could tell them what they should think about everything. And if they would just listen and adopt my opinions, the world would be a much, much happier place. Indeed. Just make me dictator of the world. I promise you, I'll be benevolent. You know, except for the graffiti. I guess I was a little harsh on them when I started the walk. I'm not going to call them artists. They're vandals. Very little graffiti, certainly in Regina anyway, rises to the level of art or even craft. All right, we'll cross over now and avoid the rush. This is a Unitarian building. Used to be Church of Christ Scientist, I think. It's also used as a venue at the Fringe Festival every year. It has a nice Greek temple sort of look in front. And here's our crescent, which you've seen many times before if you've walked with me. I suppose one way to find out if anybody is watching would be to say something so outrageous that it would bring heaps of calumny down upon my head. But I won't. Calumny is messy, hard to get out of your hair if you've had heaps of it dumped on your head. Approbation, just as bad. Approbation. So yeah, I went over an hour. I thought it would be shorter than that. Oh well, it is what it is. And yesterday's was only about 45 minutes, 50 minutes, so it all balances out. And I do count my steps for this 1,000,000 steps for the arts, which is just a way to draw attention to the plight of the arts during the pandemic. And I started counting my steps approximately. I seem to be averaging about 8,000 steps a day. Longer, some days shorter, others might be a bit more than that. Thanks to these walks, so that's something like 56,000 steps a week. And so even in the, just in 1 month, that's over 1,000,000 steps. Is that right? Yes, that's right. No, that's not right. I'm multiplying it by the number of days in a month when I meant to do it by weeks. It's 250,000 steps in a month, give or take. No, if I did 56,000 steps a day, it'd be over 1,000,000 in a month, but I'm not quite that. So it takes me an hour to do 8,000. I have to spend 7 hours a day walking. And I have other things to do. Okay, well, we will stop up here. If by any chance anybody was watching this live and just didn't say hi, thanks for walking with me. And if you watched the replay, the recording, thanks for that. And I'll be back tomorrow.